This is Dan of Vagabond Buddha. I'm going to show you videos and pictures of Mexico as I discuss the best live or retire cheap in paradise locations in Mexico for active adventure. But don't write anything down as you listen. Everything I say is in writing at Vagabond Buddha with Google Map links. Just click the link in the notes below this YouTube video to get details, pictures, and videos about every location in Mexico I discuss. Okay, active adventure, top 10 places to live or retire cheap in Mexico. In my previous post, I listed the top 10 places to live or retire cheap for cultural explorers. This time I'm covering active adventure, top 10 places in Mexico. There are 3 separate lists of top 10 places for Mexico because not everyone enjoys the same things. We just completed a 5-month tour of the best places in Mexico. We spent a week in each place. We gathered data as we traveled with the intention of creating this ranking once the tour was complete. I've ranked the 20 we visited from top to bottom. Along with ranking them, I've made short comments about each. Whatever sticks out in my mind. But here's the bad news first. When deciding where to go in Mexico, I picked destinations that included charming Old Town colonial era city centers. We also visited places that already had large expat communities, even if they were not colonial era cities. That means that the 20 places we visited and ranked below were already skewed for cultural explorers and existing expat populations. That limits the effectiveness of this list because it will only include places that we visited. Okay, here are the archetypes we used to order the 20 places we visited: cultural explorers, active adventure, and rural self-reliance. This is the active adventure list. This listing also includes links to the other 2, which you can read about to see which archetype you are. But this is the active adventure archetype. These are people that may enjoy cultural exploration, but are more dominantly focused on exploring nature and their own personal physical limits. They may even be drawn to extreme sports. It would include outdoors people, mountain bikers, whitewater rafters, snow enthusiasts, scuba divers, windsurfers, paragliders, kite surfers, skydivers. In general, they prefer being closer to the mountains, rivers, snow, and or the ocean. They may also enjoy the other archetypes, but adventure is their dominant interest. Okay, this post is ordered for active adventure archetypes. I spent a few hours creating the below activity table by a simple methodology. I Googled the best places in Mexico for each activity. If a place is presently well known for a particular activity, it would show up in my search. I gave it a check mark in the table for that activity. I did not Google the location name with an activity because those were all showing, or not all, but many of those were showing false positives on places that are only moderately known for that activity or often not known or interesting for an activity at all. As you know, the internet is loaded with information. So I focused on the activities and then looked for places in Mexico that had that activity listed as a dominant characteristic. Okay, after I completed the temple, I made slight adjustment table. I made slight adjustments based upon my personal observations of the natural terrain surrounding an area. For example, forested mountains are likely to be good for some activities, even if nobody is presently reporting that activity online for that area. Not all 20 areas we visited ended up on the list. So the places that didn't show up in searches, I made judgments based only upon the terrain. Okay, here's what I ended up with. There's a table here. Just click the link below this YouTube video to read the table with locations listed and then check marks next to activities. And then I've used those as a way to rank these in order. Okay, active adventure, top places to live or retire cheap in Mexico. Number one, Tulum, Mexico. Each of these places has a link you can click that has a full discussion of it from my visit. And so you can click those. And then I have notes here after each one. So for Tulum, Tulum is the number one place for activity adventure types. You can wind or kite surf, you can sail, you can cenote dive, scuba dive, hike, fish, water ski, snorkel, run on the beach, and mountain bike. You can do most or all of this also in Playa del Carmen and Cancun, but experience tells me that active adventurers are often more attracted to natural beauty of Tulum more than the city life of Playa del Carmen or Cancun. While exploring Tulum, consider also checking out nearby Puerto Morales. It is a fishing village just north of Playa del Carmen that offers many of these same amenities without the congestion of Cancun or Playa del Carmen. Okay, so number two on the list is Merida, Mexico. This has many of the same opportunities as Tulum, but it is slightly less worldly. I've ranked it second to Tulum because active adventure types often like to travel in groups in case someone gets hurt. Because of the more worldly nature of Tulum, you're more likely to find others willing to go on adventures with you in Tulum than Merida. They are in Merida, there are just not as many of them per capita. For that reason, you may conclude that Porta Viar-Toe is a better choice for you than Merida in the number two or even the number one spot. On the other hand, which I'm talking about next, on the other hand, Merida is a better choice if you have a cultural explorer twinge to your personality. Okay, Porta Vallarta, Mexico. PV has all of the same activities as Tulum except cenote diving, but you can surf in Porta Vallarta. Although surfing is possible sometimes in Tulum on the Yucatan, it's less likely because the water is typically too calm for surfing. Additionally, there are Pacific Coast mountains that provide do-it-yourself activities like climbing and hiking in Porta Vallarta that is more interesting because of the mountains. Plus, Porta Vallarta temperatures are not as extremely humid in the summer and fall months as they are in the Yucatan. So those are the top three: Tulum, Merida, and Porta Vallarta. Number four is Quertaro, Mexico. Quertaro has 4 adventurous activities. It also has a large average capita income, which helps support burgeoning activities. Plus, the population is more socially internet connected and enabled, and so it's easier to find out information about activities and to form groups to participate in activities. All of this helps support people interested in new toys to play with on weekends or weekdays if you're retired. Okay, Mexico City. Everything I said about Querétaro is also true about Mexico City, plus the larger population of Mexico City and its frequent and cheap direct flights all over Mexico and the world provide easy access to other locations. You can find cheap flights not just to other parts of Mexico, but also all over the world. I listed Querétaro above Mexico City because you can be out in nature quicker in Querétaro. It's a smaller city, whereas you can easily be caught up in traffic trying to get out of Mexico City for adventure. If you're enjoying this or finding this information useful, could you please like it, share on social media, comment below, or subscribe? Your interaction will rank us higher in search engines, which will help us remain successful. Thank you in advance for that. Okay, the next 5, top 10, number 6 through 10. Coming in at number 6 is Playa del Carmen, Mexico. As I said above, Playa del Carmen is only this lower on the list because I assume most activity adventure types like being close to nature and less in the city, which would imply Tulum over Playa del Carmen. If you also love great restaurants, shopping, nightlife, and generally having more contact with people, more numbers of people, you may decide that Playa del Carmen is at the top of the list. The beaches do seem to be shrinking a bit since my last visit 5 years ago. I don't know if that's global warming or what. And the urban sprawl seems to be growing a little faster than the city's ability to support infrastructure. So there's some negative aspects to both Playa del Carmen and Cancun. But if you're more of a city person, you probably are going to see that in much of the world, and you'll be okay there. Okay, the next on the list, number 7, Isla Mujeres, Mexico. Although only a small island off Cancun, this place has many of the ocean-related activities as Playa del Carmen and Tulum. There are no cenotes on the island for cenote diving, but you are just a 20-minute ferry ride from the mainland where all the cenotes are located, or many of them. Oh, and number 8, San Cristobal, Mexico. This is in a very green, mountainous part of the world at a higher elevation with rivers and a longer, cooler, rainy season. It also has relatively low human population by comparison and a short period of time to get out of the city. This implies many activities that didn't show up in internet searches. That's why I have it near the top, even though it didn't show up so often in activity searches. And so it's a gorgeous mountainous green area with rivers and trees, and that implies a lot that you may have to do some developing on your own of. But the same could be said for Patsicuro, which is next on the list, number 9. Patsicuro has many of the same mountainous qualities that I mentioned above for San Cristobal. It's a little more arid, not quite as rainy. Plus, it's just a 10-minute bike ride from a beautiful lake with all that implies for activity types. And so it additionally has a lake. So if that's interesting to you, you might even place it above San Cristobal, Mexico. Okay, number 10, Guanajuato, Mexico. This mountainous there's mountains surrounding the city. They're a bit more arid than the previous 2 discussed, but the city streets and walkways are very steep. So if you like urban downhill bike riding or skateboarding, this place is a natural. And of course, it has all the hiking and beautiful mountains, a little more arid and a bit possibly warmer than the other 2 at a little lower elevation, or at least better weather patterns. Okay, getting into number 11 here, Oaxaca, Mexico. It's surrounded by beautiful mountains, 6 hours from the Pacific Ocean, so that implies a lot about it, although not much is listed for extreme sports. Campeche, Mexico. It's on the Gulf of Mexico, but not as developed as Merida at number 12. And then number 13, Chapala, Ajijic, Mexico. It's a beautiful rural village surrounded by rolling hills, located on the largest freshwater lake in Mexico. A large expat community that loves the place and posts a lot of information online about it. It's well-organized, systems in place for new retirement-oriented expats. Great fishing, hiking, and bicycle riding. And there's also smaller, very highly rural cities around the lake if you want low-density people or want to do your own farming and that kind of thing. So this one should rank high in the rural self-reliance, which I'll post next. San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, one of the most beautiful villages in the entire world, surrounded by gorgeous trees on arid rolling hills with hiking trails. Visually, possibly the most stunning place, certainly in Mexico, if not the world. San Miguel de Allende. Not a lot of extreme sports there, but there are expats, and so if that's interesting to you, it's a great choice. Okay, Merida, Mexico, beautiful mountains, only 1 hour away, and also true of the next one, Puebla, Mexico. Both high elevations, colonial area cities with beautiful, extremely high mountains all within an hour of the city. Okay, next up, Cuernavaca, Mexico. Surrounded by gorgeous trees on arid rolling hills with hiking trails. Lists whitewater rafting in Mexico, but the example pictures seem to be limited. I would doubt either the season or what the level of the rapids are, but at least it's listed. There might be some whitewater rafting there. Okay, Tepoztlan, Mexico. This is a gorgeous, low population, hostel party village in rolling hills, just an hour from Mexico City and only 30 minutes from Cuernavaca, which lists both Cuernavaca and Mexico City have activity sports listed. So Tepoztlan's mainly hiking and beautiful rolling hills, but it's also will be highly listed in the next Self-Reliance because there's a lot of, well, I'll talk about it then. Okay, Tasco, Mexico, very steep streets in the urban setting, so that would have some urban extreme sports for you there. And not much listed otherwise. Guadalajara, Mexico, larger city with vehicle lever oriented layout. You're going to need a car if you live here. Beautiful daytime colonial era city center. It's not really, doesn't seem to be that lived in at night. Maybe not as lived in as some of the other colonial era cities I mentioned. It's surrounded by rolling hills, and it's just 70 minutes from the largest freshwater lake in Mexico, with weekend getaways at Chapla Ajijic. Okay, that's number 20. So this completes our list of top places to retire in Mexico based upon active adventure, retire or live cheap. Here are other archetypes, links to those. 10 places in Mexico for cultural explorer archetypes, and then top 10 places in Mexico for rural self-reliance archetypes, the links here for that. Plus our best travel or retire cheap in paradise locations in the world. Just click the link below this YouTube video to get any of the links to any of those. And then here also a link to our Vagabond Buddha YouTube channel with videos about all my ranked retire cheap in paradise locations. If you'd like to learn how to make money online or how to live internationally, possibly with less money than you spend at home, please grab a free copy of my ebook on the webpage. There's a link there you'll see. This is Dan of Vagabond Buddha. Thanks for stopping by. The world is your home. What time will you be home for dinner?